It's been a long 5 years since we got our last full entry into the hallowed Doom franchise. Now the Slayer returns in this energetic prequel adventure. So how does Doom the Dark Ages fare compared to his critically acclaimed predecessors? This review will take a deep dive into this frenzied 20-hour campaign that re-examines what it means to be a Doom game and how it masterfully triumphs in this endeavor. The first thing you'll notice when playing Dark Ages is how different it feels from Eternal. While Eternal felt like Doom 2016 on steroids, an evolution of the gameplay style, Dark Ages feels like a reimagining of id Software's gameplay philosophy. Don't get me wrong, this still feels like a Doom game. At its core, it's an extremely entertaining, bloody, and challenging combat puzzle that you're constantly solving on the battlefield. But this game is much more grounded and slower paced than its predecessors. And perhaps slower is the wrong word, as it still maintains that classic frenetic pace that the franchise is known for. But the action is much more intentional in its pacing. You're given a much larger toolbox to work with in Dark Ages, and you as the player control the action and flow of combat like never before. This is where the shield saw takes center stage. The gameplay loop is almost built entirely around utilizing the shield in one way or another. You can use it to shield charge, a fast action teleport that smashes through weaker demons, obliterating them and the nearby cannon fodder into full screens of blood and horror. Using the shield charge can even function as a sort of grapple / homing beacon to let you scale heights. You can also throw the shield, Steve Rogers style, slicing imps in half and even stunning some of the bigger enemies, holding them in place as you unload a barrage of gunfire on them. You can break metallic shields and armor with it, well, so long as you heat them up by first lacing them with lead, and you'll use it in almost every environmental puzzle in the game. But most importantly, you'll use it to block and to parry. And this is where Dark Ages really shines and becomes a different experience from previous installments. id Software said they were inspired to make this new entry more like the 1993 original, where you had to dodge a flurry of projectiles, constantly strafing and putting yourself in the right positions. In almost every encounter, you'll be bombarded with hellfire, mostly by slow-moving projectiles that you can dodge and more importantly block. Although some enemies do fire quick flash blasts that are much harder to time. Red projectiles you can block, and the green ones you can parry back onto your enemies. And then there's the melee. You start with the power gauntlet, a powerful punch that could be comboed to break enemies in half. But you will unlock other melee weapons deeper in the game, each with its own set of upgrades. When you add all these elements together with the largest variety of enemies in the franchise, you start to see the brilliance in the combat. I found myself having a blast being creative on the battlefield. The equal stress and excitement I felt was exhilarating. It's organized chaos that never feels overwhelming, but always feels thrilling. But where the gameplay stumbles a tiny bit for me is a feeling of over-reliance on the parry mechanic. When you're facing a large and diverse horde of enemies, parry feels just like another tool in your arsenal. But when you get into one-on-one engagements with larger enemies and boss battles, it almost always is the best strategy just to wait for the green Hell Surge attack to parry, then counterattack. You could choose to approach the fight in different ways, of course, but when the most effective strategy is always the same, it can feel a bit repetitive. This isn't a huge issue as you're almost always swarmed of enemies. Dark Ages is most fun when engaging a large and varied swarm of enemies, forcing you to use all the tools at your disposal. And I also must lament the loss of glory kills in Dark Ages. While there are still some glory kills in this game, it's nowhere near the variety we had in Doom 2016 or Eternal. id commented in an interview that they did this to help expand the melee system. Once you weaken an enemy enough, they'll still glow in that purple outline and they'll be ready to be finished off, but instead of always getting a glory kill, most times the Slayer finishes them with a quick melee attack. There's still more than enough brutality in this game, but it's a point worth mentioning for fans of the series. Aside from the FPS combat, Dark Ages also introduces two new gameplay styles to the series with the Mech Warrior missions, called Atlands. as well as riding on your own personal dragon for flying sections. They only make up a small part of the game's 22 missions, but these sections are mostly forgettable, and I'll discuss them a bit later in the review. While combat is the meat of the game, exploration is a huge part of the fun. This game is filled to the brim with secrets and collectibles to find. You can find much needed gold for unlocking power-ups to your weapons and armor. You can find Funko Pop style toys for each character in the game. You can engage in secret encounters. You can find codexes that deepen the game's lore. While Eternal's puzzles were about using your jumps and dashes to find new locations, Dark Ages is all about using your shield in different ways to unlock new areas and reach hard to get to locations. I spent at least 5 to 6 hours of my 20-hour playthrough just exploring the maps and trying to find more secrets and unlockables. The puzzles range from very easy to slightly difficult. There was never anything that was frustrating that I was stuck on for more than 10 minutes. Many times, the secrets are dangled in front of you from the other side of an inaccessible gate, and I found the desire to figure out how to get to that location irresistible. Although I will say that I haven't unlocked every single thing in the game, so there might be more difficult environmental puzzles that I didn't get a chance to encounter. I have roughly 60% of the unlockables, and I'm sure I could get another solid 5 hours of fun just exploring, just focusing on finding the collectibles. As for mission design, there's essentially 4 types of missions in this game. There's the linear map design, where you have to follow a path forward to the end of the map. There's going to be tons of nooks and crannies along the way to discover secrets, but ultimately the only way to progress is just to move forward. Many of these types of missions even had point of no return sections, so you know that you have to explore the previous area before moving on. But every mission is replayable, so no secret is missable. It's just nice having that type of indicator before moving forward on the current run. The second type of mission is the semi-open world map design. There are these huge sandbox missions that usually give you straightforward objectives like taking down 4 towers or closing 5 gates, but you can approach it in any order you desire. I wouldn't say it's transformative from the linear design, as combat encounters feel mostly the same, but it's a wonderful change of pace. It makes exploration much more gratifying in these semi-open world sections, as they tend to have more collectibles scattered around the map. You'll never have a point of no return, and you'll have these moments where you have to find secret keys on one part of the map to open gates on the other side of the map, and it just feels deeply rewarding. And lastly, you have the mech missions and the dragon missions. Both these do well in adding a break from the regular action, but both fail in being compelling mission styles in of themselves. The mech missions are these quick melee splurges that require you to mash the R2 button until your finisher meter fills up, and then press R1 to kill your enemy. If you perfect dodge a demon, then your meter will fill up faster, and that's it. You learn the gameplay in the first 10 seconds, and it never gets deeper than that. It is pretty awesome to see the same environment you just walked through for almost an hour being decimated into a pile of rubble as you bull rush your way through entire buildings. Many missions have these giant Atlas fighting enormous demons in the distance, so it was a lot of fun jumping in the Atlas for the first time and being able to control a skyscraper-sized mech. The dragon sections are similarly shallow. You'll have these linear sections where you make your way through narrow caves and trenches, and then there's sections that are slightly more open for the player to fly around freely. But the dragon combat essentially comes down to locking on targets and waiting for green projectiles for a perfect dodge. Your normal gun won't even do damage into these bigger ships until the perfect dodge is executed, because it activates a stronger weapon. There's some smaller ships flying about, and you can gun them down with your normal gun, but the ships never fight back. They just run away from you like a mindless game of tag. The dragon sections are particularly frustrating because you can feel the potential in it. The flying feels fluid and natural, and gunning down the random ships has its fun charm to it. I can imagine full-scale aerial dogfights with these mechanics, but luckily these sections aren't long and there are only a few in the game. In the end, they did what id really wanted them for: gameplay variance. I received my review copy from Bethesda on the PS5, and I played it on the PS5 Pro. The game is smooth, and not once did I ever experience any lags or stutter while playing on an FOV of 105. In my 20-hour playtime, the game only crashed on me once, and it was during the final boss. Otherwise, I had zero performance issues. And honestly, I didn't expect anything less from the polished experiences it delivered from the previous two Doom games. The game looks beautiful, especially considering the intense speed of the Doomslayer and the number of enemies on screen. And finally, the story. One of the biggest differences in Dark Ages is that it has a fully realized cinematic story. Almost every mission begins and ends with a cutscene. Doom 2016 took a very minimalist approach, telling the vast majority of its story through codexes you could find and read. Eternal added a bit more of a cinematic story, but nowhere near the level of most cinematic campaigns. I know there's a big fan base for the minimalist approach, and while I think it has its merits, especially in world building, I've always vastly preferred having cutscenes to flesh out a story. I like the cinematics to set up my upcoming mission so I can easily understand the stakes, and the end of mission cutscene as a sort of reward for finishing a mission. I think Dark Ages got the balance just right, as you're never interrupted in the middle of a mission with an extended cutscene. Metal Gear Solid 4, I'm looking at you. In Doom 2016, you read the Slayer Testaments. In Dark Ages, you'll see them and play through them. And luckily, it still sprinkles the lore-enhancing codexes across the missions if you want to dive deeper into the various characters in the game. This is by far the best visual story in the Doom franchise. Final verdict. id Software doesn't rest on its laurels and instead takes Doom into new and creative directions, redefining its gameplay loop. While it stumbles a bit on its over-reliance on parries and its Atlan and Dragon missions, this is nonetheless one of the best games of the year and a worthy entry into the mythic Doom franchise. This is a must-play for anyone looking for a deep and engrossing FPS campaign.